Math. 10.5, add decimal fractions and decimals. Learning target. I can use equivalent fractions to add decimal fractions and decimals. Let's go over one of our vocabulary words for today, and that is decimal fraction. A fraction with a denominator of 10 or 100, 26 100ths, 9 tenths, and 60 100ths. We need to take some time to do a little bit of review from previous chapters. I think chapter 9 is when we were adding fractions. And if you remember, we were adding fractions that had like denominators. So for example, 1/6 plus 3/6, you just add the numerators, it becomes 4/6. 3/8 plus 2/8 equals 5/8. 2/10 plus 5/10 equals 7/10. Okay, moving on. Now, we also need to go over how to find equivalent fractions, equal fractions. So I hope you remember, if we have a fraction 2/5, we can make an equivalent fraction by multiplying a number by 2 and by 5, your numerator and your denominator. For example, let me see, I'll just choose the number 10. So I'm going to take that 10 and I'm going to multiply the numerator by the 10 and the denominator by 10. They have to be the same number. 2 times 10 is 20, and 5 times 10 is 50. So now we've just made equivalent fractions. It would be 2/5 is equivalent to 20 50ths. Let's do another example. 3/4. This time I'm going to choose 100. So 3 times 100 and 4 times 100. Multiply across 300 and 400. So our equivalent fractions are 3/4 and 300 400ths. And let's do one more example. 1/2. This time I'm going to choose 10. So let's try multiply by 10. 1 times 10 equals 10, and 2 times 10 equals 20. And our equivalent fractions are 1/2 and 10/20ths. Okay, next. Now, what would happen if your fractions did not have the same denominator? What if they had unlike denominators, like this example here, 3/10 plus 47 100ths? What you need to do in order to do this addition problem is to make the denominators the same. And what you would do is work with the 3/10. And now we need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by a number that would give us a denominator of 10. Well, 10 times what equals 100? That would be 10 times 10. So I'm going to multiply both the top and bottom by 10. And that becomes 30 100ths. So our equivalent fractions, I'm just going to put an arrow here, because 3/10 is equal to 30 100ths. So now I can go ahead and do my problem. Let's rewrite it. 30 100ths plus 47 100ths is equal to 77. Oops, add that 0. 77 100ths. So that would be our answer. All right. Now let's move on to decimals. Just like with fractions, our decimals have to be in the same place value on our place value chart. So 0.75 plus 0.2, or 75 hundredths plus 2/10. This is written in the hundredths place, and this is written the tenths place. They have to be the same. So I'm going to bring down the 75 hundredths, and I can write an equivalent decimal and write 0.2 as 0.20 or 20 hundredths. And remember, it doesn't matter how many zeros you put after the 2. It's going to be the same amount, but now we just made it in the hundredths place. 0.75 plus 0.20. And that's going to give us 0.20. 95 or 95 hundredths. You could also take your two decimals and stack them vertically, but you have to be careful because you need to make sure that your decimals are lined up and your place values are the same. So ones place, decimal, tenths place, 7, and 2 right underneath, and then hundredths place, 5, and then 0. And you can add them vertically that way. They'll give you the same answer, 95 hundredths. All right. Now, let's get into some example problems that you will see in your work today. 2 tenths plus 23 hundredths. Again, I cannot add them the way it is written. I need to change the 2 tenths into a fraction where the denominator is 100. So 2 tenths, I need to multiply the top number by 10 and the bottom number by 10. Sorry, it's a 0. To give us 20 100ths. Now, I've just found an equivalent decimal, and now I can just add the other, not equivalent decimal, an equivalent fraction. And it goes like that. So add your numerators, that would be 43 100ths. You will see some problems where there are 3 add-ins. That means 3 numbers added together. Well, if I take a look at the denominators, if it was just these 2 fractions, that would be pretty easy to add. But they've also given us 2 tenths, which does not have a denominator of 100. That's easy enough to find an equivalent fraction for. We need to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 10, because it'll give us 20 100ths. So now our problem, I'm going to rewrite it down here, is 48 100ths plus 16 100ths plus, instead of 2 tenths, we're going to write 20 100ths. There. And if you would like, you can just take your numerators and you can add them like this, vertically. 14, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So your answer is 84 100ths. Let's go ahead and because I don't want it to be too confusing, let's move down to this problem down here. Now, you're also going to get a few problems where you have both a decimal and a fraction. Easy enough to do. You can either both make them fractions or make both numbers decimals. I think I'm going to choose, first of all, to write 0.5 tenths into a fraction. 5 tenths equals 5 tenths, like this, plus 29 100ths. Now, my denominators are not the same, so I have to make an equivalent fraction. I'm going to take 5 tenths, and I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator by 10, because if I multiply that by 10, I will get 50 100ths. So now I can rewrite my problem as, I'll put it here, 50 100ths plus 29 100ths, and that will give me 79 100ths. You can also, instead of keeping them as fractions, not keeping them, instead of changing both to fractions, you can change them both to decimals. So what you would have is, let me get another piece of paper. I'm just going to rewrite it. 0.5 plus 29 over 100. So instead of making both of them fractions, let's make both of them decimals. So we're going to keep the 0.5. And then we're going to write 29 100ths. Let's move that so it's not so confusing to look at with all the numbers. Let's make 29 100ths into a decimal. 29 hundredths, then the hundredths place. That means I have to fill in 2 places after the decimal point. 29. All right. But now this is in the hundredths place, and that's in the tenths place. All we need to do is to make 0.5 into 0.50 or 50 100ths plus 0.29. And that's going to give us an answer of 79 hundredths, which is the same as what we got
when we changed we made both numbers into fractions. 79 hundredths is the same as 0.79 or 79 hundredths. All right. Boys and girls, like I said, it's really good for you to watch these videos so that you understand the work for today. And you don't have to just watch the video once. You can watch it more than once. You can pause and go back so that you understand each step